Welcome to Rambam in Depth. Today we're going to be discussing the Rambam in Hilchos Teshuva, Perek Revi, Halacha Vav. In an earlier Perek, the Rambam listed many things for which Teshuva is very, very difficult. And one of those things is Hamiskabed B'Klein Chaverei, someone who receives honor at the expense of his fellow, his colleague, through their degradation. Someone is in a classroom and you say your opinion and your fellow says his opinion, and it turns out his opinion was off the wall and he's embarrassed, and meanwhile you're going to be looking very good because you were right and he was totally wrong. That is a terrible sin, and a person for that sin is prevented. It's very difficult for that person to do tshuva. So the Rambam, and it says that the person loses his share in Olam Haba. He loses his share in the world to come. So the Rambam here, Halacha Vav, says, Kol elu hadvarim u'kayotzepen. All of these things, and he listed many other examples of things of that category. Aval pishu ma'akvenis tshuva, even though they prevent the ability to do tshuva. So the Rambam says, Eina meinin is a tshuva. They don't completely prevent tshuva. In other words, they put impediments for the tshuva, but they don't prevent you from doing tshuva. If a person did do tshuva for getting honored by degrading his fellow, as one of the many things that the Rambam listed before, he's considered a Baal tshuva, and he has a share in the world to come. That's the statement of the Rambam. So there's a sefer called Ar HaYashar. Ar HaYashar is a sefer ha'aras on all of Talmud Bavli, Yerushalmi, and Rambam, and Tanakh, by the father-in-law of Rabbi Herzog, the first chief rabbi of Israel. And it's a tremendous bekiyas there. So he asked the question, the Magen Avraham, in Shulchan Aruch Arachayim, Simin Kuf Nun Vav, he brings this din, Hamiskabed B'Klein Chaverei, She'ein Lei Chelik Le'elam Haba. He brings this din, if you're honored by the degradation of your fellow, you lose your share in the world to come. And he doesn't mention that tshuva helps. If the whole source is the Rambam, and the Rambam makes it very clear, and it's very important to know that tshuva helps, and he doesn't mention that. The Alter Rebbe, in his Shulchan Aruch, on the same Simin Kuf Nun Vav, also brings this Magen Avraham, and he doesn't add that tshuva does help, and he has a chelik le'elam haba. Why do they leave that out? But if you think about it, the question can be answered very easily. The din in Shulchan Aruch is brought in Simin Kuf Nun Vav. What is Simin Kuf Nun Vav? The Magen Avraham there lists a lot of things that he takes from Hilchos Deis of the Rambam. Now in Hilchos Deis, the Rambam, Perek Zayin Halacha Gimel, he also brings this din of Miskabed B'Klein Chaverei. And there the Rambam doesn't add that tshuva helps, that he has a chelik in Olam Haba. Why not? Because this din is connected to Hilchos Deis. In other words, it's trying to tell you what's proper behavior, what's a good personality, a proper personality. A person who gets benefit and enjoys his fellow's degradation, that's a negative in terms of Deis. There's no reason to mention that he has a chelik le'elam haba, because there he's just trying to show you how contradictory it is to proper Deis, to proper comportment. So the Rambam, which explains why the Rambam mentions this halacha in two places. He mentions it in Hilchos Deis because it's a chelik in Hilchos Deis. He mentions it in Hilchos Teshuva because there's another din. There's a din at Shaykh to Hilchos Teshuva where he talks about tshuva for different sins. So here he has to say, if he just tells you that it's difficult to do tshuva and he has no chelik olam haba, it wouldn't be a complete halacha. The halacha is that tshuva does help. It may be difficult, but it's not something that's totally precluded. In Hilchos Deis, there's no reason to go into the degrees of Teshuva. He's just telling you how despicable that type of behavior is. And this is a pattern that we find throughout the Rambam. The Rambam will mention a halacha in two places. It's not repetition. It's not that the Rambam thought you may have missed it the first time, or maybe he wants to give you a complete picture. But in each place, it's connected to the title of that place. In Hilchos Deis, it's important to mention how he has no chelik l'olam haba. It's a terrible sin. It's the opposite of proper deis. When he's talking Hilchos Teshuva, there he's talking about Teshuva. He can't just say it doesn't help, because it's maybe difficult. It may be something that's withheld until you do a stronger Teshuva, but ultimately Teshuva does help. And that's why here he mentions it in Hilchos Teshuva. The Alter Rebbe and the Magen Avraham are talking about deis. The Alter Rebbe says it in the context of Avas Yisrael. Yes, in the terms of Avas Yisrael, getting pleasure by your fellow's degradation is a terrible thing. It's the opposite of Avas Yisrael in an extreme way, and you lose your chelik l'olam haba. There is no need to tell you that you could do tshuva, because that's not Hilchos Teshuva. If we had the Alter Rebbe and the Magen Avraham Hilchos Teshuva, they probably would have mentioned that the Rambam says here that tshuva does help.